Hi everyone, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com. Today is a big episode for us because we are going to create the drawstrings for our drawstring top, and then we are going to finish assembling the exterior. So let's get started right away, shall we? Okay, to create the fabric drawstring, which I'll show you works like this. It just cinches up that top. You're going to need to cut 2 pieces of cotton fabric which measure 3 inches wide and approximately 20 inches long. You might be able to get 21 inches out of your fabric. So to create the drawstring portion, you're going to fold one end of the fabric over approximately 1/2 inch and then fold that piece in half long ways. Press that and then open that up and bring those raw edges in on that center press line and then fold it over one more time to create your tie. Then you're just going to stitch that finished edge and all the way down that folded edge to create the tie. And now we have a finished tie. Just trim up your little threads on the end there. And I use a large safety pin to thread my ties. There might be another tool that you have, so I'm just going to put this safety pin through that finished edge. And then you remember we created the channel here, so you just go in between those 2 layers of fabric and feed that tie through until you get to the other side. Just pull that out and go ahead and pin the end here, and then we're going to go over to the machine and tack that down forward and back stitch so that has a nice strong hold. Alright, both drawstrings are in place. You could go ahead and take out that safety pin, and those will work like this to draw that top part in. Okay, so you're going to want to tie these or stitch these drawstrings so that they don't come get sucked back up in there while you're working with this. And you could just pull that out like that. A little knot is perfect, a loose knot there. Now we need to get we can go ahead and set this aside for a few minutes. And we need to get the rear panel that we made with the hidden zipper. And then I have fashioned a base panel in the same way that we created the side panels, 2 by 2 by 2, using 10 4-inch squares. So you have 2 squares for the width and 5 squares for the length, and I quilted that in the same fashion. And I'm going to lay that on the bottom, aligning the edges. That's the base of the back panel, and stitch all the way across. Okay, and for that I used a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and that is attached beautifully. And now we need this trifold panel back again. So this is the top of the drawstring and this is the base, and you're going to align. Here's the top of the rear panel and the base. You're going to align the 2 bases. So just position that on top of there, center it. You could put 2 pins in it if you like. You're going to stitch from the side seam to the side seam across that base using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You'll want to make sure that you use a reverse stitch at the beginning and the end of that. We need the base very secure. And so now you should have something that resembles a very large T. And what you want to do now is bring this in and align the sides. Reach in there. And you're definitely going to want to pin these because now you're working with a huge piece of fabric. So get your sides aligned. And then put several pins in that to hold it. I'm going to flip that over to the other side and align these 2 sides. Okay, now we need to stitch with the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance from the top to the base on both sides to secure those together. Make sure you use the reverse stitch at the top and the bottom. You can take out those pins, and now you need to sew up the other side. Okay, I have attached both sides. When you're doing that, you'll want to pay attention to where that back zipper pocket is to make sure you don't capture that in any of those seams. And I just want to take a few minutes and check all of those side seams and make sure that everything is in there, because it's a very easy fix right now. If you happen to miss anything, you don't want a hole in your bag. And then go ahead and remove any pins too, so you don't want to get poked later. So now we just have to close up the bottom here where the base of the side meets the side of the base, and that should be pretty nicely aligned for you already. So just stitch from seam to seam across there with the 5/8 of an inch, using the back stitch at the beginning and the end. And then same thing, check those side base seams there and make sure that you've captured the panels and the pocket in those seams, and this looks amazing. So now it's like, this is like the big reveal, because we get to turn this bag right side out and see how it really looks. And you just want to poke out those corners. And it is really, really beautiful. Such a pretty bag. So this is awesome. The outside is done. Now the next step is going to be our interior. So we're not going to do all of this quilting and design on the inside. We'll just use solid cuts of cotton fabric. You could use a canvas or a twill if you like, but at this point it might make the bag too heavy. So I would suggest going with a quilt weight cotton. And we'll start in the next video segment working with those interior pieces and assembling it. We can definitely incorporate some pockets into the inside of that. So that's what I want you to think about, and then just comment for me and let me know if you would like to see slip pockets on the inside, which these are slip pockets here like what we put on the outside here, and we could divide those to hold various contents like a pen, a phone, notebooks, things like that. If you would like perhaps a large interior pocket, we could put a little padding for a laptop or an iPad. That's an option. Maybe you don't want any pockets. Maybe you're ready to just get this baby done. I'm okay with that too. You might want a small pocket for the phone perhaps. We could elasticize the pockets as well. So I'll create a little summary of the options and I'll put those in the comments. Then I'm also going to post the options on Instagram and Facebook. Feel free to comment on any of those platforms and I'll just compile all the responses and we'll go with majority, the consensus of the majority on that. So I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, know the creative genius in me salutes the creative genius in you, and I hope you have a beautiful day.